Welcome one, welcome all to DeFi Crypto and Airdrops. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and with me as always on Tuesdays and Fridays is my boy Jeff. How's it going, brother? Is it good to see that you got
What's
home
up?
okay from the cabin?
Yeah. Had a great time. I appreciate you hosting. Yeah, awesome experience. Great to get out of the Bay Area, get into nature and the snow. Just kind of disconnect from everything out here, and even doing the first live show to in-person live show. So that was fun, and we had a great crew that joined us on Friday. Had some drinks, and
Yep.
yeah, even got to meet one of your brothers. So
Yeah.
awesome dude. It was a great time.
No, it
Had
was
some
it
good
was a good
ribs.
time. Yeah, you have to come back up here when it warms up where we can go out and do some kayaking and hiking and all that kind of all the ings.
Yeah. Yeah. How you
Well,
doing? How's the rest of your weekend and reintegrating into the crypto space after the weekend?
it's well, I was on Mario Nafal today. I'm going to be on again tomorrow, and yesterday I was on with Texas Jeff, TradFi Jeff. Taylor wasn't able to make it, so we kind of talked about the markets and what's going on. Of course, we got like the FOMC tomorrow, and the speculation of a 50 basis point interest rate cut, and it looks like the markets might have been maybe reacting to that potential um, earlier today. Haven't checked in a minute. Let me take a look. See, they freaking went parabolic, and like they kind of usually do. It's just been kind of slowly petering back off, back to where it was at. So, yeah, I was cautiously optimistic. As it was going parabolic, I just had a feeling it was going to peter out. Like it's been doing. So, didn't get too excited. Well, who do we got in the
Yeah.
chat? We
These
got
big pumps.
Alexandria G hooking it up. We got first VAR rifle or VA rifleman. We got a whitewater kayaking. I really want to paddle some whitewater, just like my heroes Lewis and Clark. Uh, I actually gave away my whitewater kayak, but I still have my my smooth water, my lake kayaks that I like to use to I load all my stuff up on them and do a lot of paddling. I paddle in, do a lot of places you can only get to by kayak and camp and fish and a lot of cool waterfalls that you can only get to by paddling to them. So,
Mm,
well,
those are
should we
usually the best,
jump
the hard to
into the
find areas.
socials?
Yeah.
All
Let me
right, let's
get my
do a little of
screen.
that action.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, everyone, on this Taco Tuesday here at DeFi Crypto and Airdrops, where me and Mike go live every Tuesday and Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I hope that you were able to join us last Friday for our first in-person live show. It was a lot of fun. If you haven't seen it, go back and check it out down here at the bottom. You can see, and Mike kind of pops in my camera every once in a while. But Mike also goes live on Mondays, like he said yesterday, at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern with Money Talks. To also check out the Wednesday show, the DeFi Masterclass with David and Jake at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. That show is one of my favorites just because of the alpha that those guys bring. And these guys are providing thousands of dollars of value all for free in
Mhm.
these weekly classes. So definitely check those out. Also, check out the DeFi Academy if you're looking for where to start in your DeFi journey. And interviews on Thursdays, 2 p.m. Pacific. Just a whole host of information and alpha that you can't find anywhere else, bringing traditional finance, DeFi, all kinds of stuff. Check out our brother channels, me at the Blockchain Report, Jake Call, Blockchain Basement, Discover Crypto, and David at the DeFi University. All your crypto needs in one place. Uh, Jake Call's Metrics Finance. If you need a DeFi portfolio tracker, it is free to start. We recommend starting with the free subscription, and then you can bump yourself up to pro or elite if you find it useful. The elite pricing is over, so I don't think they've changed that back yet, but they do have monthly offers as well. So if you just want to test the waters, start for free. And also David's DeFi University, 97 a month. They do have Monday through Friday daily live mentorships and a 6 mastery course from beginner to advanced, and a whole host of people in the community that you can learn from and bounce ideas off of. So definitely check that out if you're in that area. And Mike's DeFi Wise newsletter, been crushing it. Um, yeah, and you've been getting some pretty good responses from that as well. So that's awesome to hear. That's what you really want to see is people finding value in this. Only 19.95 or just under $20 a month. Goes out Monday through Friday. They get up pretty early in the morning to get the newsletter ready. So definitely appreciate your hard work for that. And yeah, check us out on Twitter, the _only DCA. You can catch Mike at Veteran4Crypto, me at the BCR142. And we're also streaming on Pump.fun and now the Arena. So the Arena, yeah, seems like we're getting a lot of people there just in a short amount of time. So that's really cool. I know the Blockchain Basement has been streaming on there or talking about it, but yeah, really cool to see all the different avenues outside of YouTube, because we know that they can be quite a pain to deal with when talking about certain topics or yeah, just
Absolutely.
yeah, anything. But no, we appreciate everyone. Oh, if you're on Twitter, please jump in the chat on YouTube so we can get to connect with you better. And also our Discord. We have a Discord. All the links are down in the description. Discord is free. Got a lot of great alpha in there. Awesome community sharing liquidity pools and just talking about crypto, that they're holding, or even last week we had some talks about Plume that, that not everyone agreed on, but that's what we appreciate is everyone's, differing opinions, and we can come to at least a consensus on certain things. But yeah, we appreciate everyone out there.
Well, I guess we could go ahead and jump on into this.
Just jump
So
in.
I'll kind of cue off the conversation really quick with just a couple little things that I found on X. So those of you that don't know, we kind of we're shifting away from doing deep dives just for a bit, just because I want to make sure that we're only covering solid projects. I don't just want to keep covering projects if I don't feel like they have legs. And we were getting kind of thin on new projects that we were felt like were not just vaporware. So
Mm-hmm.
um, we're gonna kind of start mixing it up a little bit. That's what we've been doing, and these Tuesdays and Friday shows are just gonna be more kind of what's going on in the markets. Just kind of pour a little drink, smoke a little smoke, whatever it is you do to relax, and just hang out and talk about markets and just kind of where we're going and what we're doing to kind of survive them. But this is some of the something that I've been seeing a lot of lately is Chainlink. Every time I turn around, they are the interoperability layer between basically traditional finance and DeFi, or decentralized finance, like this Swapper and Mastercard. You have Chainlink is the interoperability layer for Swift. Again, Web3, Web2, traditional finance, DeFi. It's just Chainlink just keeps churning up more so than other interoperability plays. So, Chainlink is about my only interoperability hold. What about you?
I don't hold any Chainlink, but I love the project. I mean, just because it's integrated in everything. I mean, you can't do anything without Chainlink, really. The price oracles and stuff, and all of the projects are just so bullish. I mean, that's one of the first things that they list when they launch is Chainlink. We have Chainlink integration and just yeah, all the talks with traditional finance too. Was the Swift payment system is starting to integrate with them as well, and I mean if you can move money around, especially, in traditional finance, it takes what, 3 to 5 business days in certain cases. You're doing wire transfers and shit. But if you can have these systems that can move money like that, like I'm trying to buy a car right now, and I know in the past I've had issues where it'll be like, oh, well, it takes a few business days, or your account can only
Hmm.
spend up to a certain, like $5,000 at a time. And it's like, well, fuck, do I have to put a down payment and then come back tomorrow and pay the rest of it and all this shit? So, the Web3 can really help accelerate that, give you liquidity faster and access to your funds 24/7. So, yeah, and I know you were talking on the Mario Nafal show earlier about the retail coming in and the barriers to entry, and
Yep.
how it's going to start getting easier and easier, and people are going to setting up a wallet's going to be easier and all this
If
shit.
if you
So
even need,
if you need a
like this to set up a wallet. I mean, I've
yeah,
noticed a couple of things that I've done where simply signing up, automatically creates a wallet. You don't
yeah,
got to
email
set
email
anything up.
address.
What's that?
You can sign up with your email address. In some
Yeah,
cases, it's called call it like account abstraction,
yeah.
where email address or a passkey. Like I have a password manager, and it does what's called a passkey, and it links it to that. Or there's certain like security things called a YubiKey, which is like a USB device that it only works if you plug it into your computer, and it has like its own passcode and shit. So if you need to log in, you plug in the USB and it's your passkey. So certain things like that, I've noticed projects are using. So a lot better security features. So if somebody hacks your wallet, they can't log in unless they have that security key. So yeah, a lot of good integrations and good tech than just these cold wallets that are on your browser that can easily be hacked.
No, absolutely. So ran into this guy. I won't play the video. I'll just summarize it. But Uh, I'm not quite sure what he means by crypto is dead. That's my takeaway from Abu Dhabi. Everywhere I look, there are people in suits talking about how to bring institutional money or how to impress banks. Haven't seen any tie-dyed shirts with unicorns. No one's talking about crypto Twitter. Seems like the industry has been captured by the suits, adapt or perish. So I would tend to agree with that. Um, we've been watching, basically the hostile takeover, with regulation, institutions and institutional money coming in, and the crypto market went from pretty much all retail, where it was all about narratives. It was all about the Bitcoin halving and the cycles, and it was just you could almost set your watch by it. And now, I never went to any of them, but I've watched videos and talked to enough people. But a lot of the conventions, it used to be just nothing but catering to retail, whereas now, it looks like that whenever they're having these conventions, Bitcoin conventions, crypto conventions, it is geared very much for towards institutions and institutional money. They're not catering to retail anymore because they understand, to be taken seriously, to to get the funding, to get the liquidity, then you need to be talking to institutions and banks. And retail is going to go to institutions and banks. We have to realize, the OG, crypto people need to realize that, this technology, just like the internet, just like any other technology, is, if the institutions see the potential for huge profits like they do in crypto now, they're going to take it over, and they're going to build it out to where they control it. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, we're going to have to find ways to where we can take advantage of it, but at the same time, have that self sovereignty that we all desire so much. With vehicles like Bitcoin, I see some people are trying to use Zcash for that with the privacy. Just being able to kind of detach from the traditional financial system, banks and CBDCs and all those sorts of things. So anyway, that's was interesting to see that people are really starting to parrot that narrative that these big conventions aren't necessarily just for retail or for retail at all anymore. Looks like U.S. regulators approved national banks to safely process crypto trades for clients. So, that's another tick mark for basically U.S. markets. Now banks are able to custody and to process crypto trades. So, I mean, we're already seeing where some banks are allowed to give loans, Bitcoin and Ethereum backed loans.
Shit.
It's starting to move fast. I mean, it seems like just yesterday that under the Biden administration with Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren, we were wondering if crypto was going to survive. If it was ever going to get any kind of legislation or anything like that, or if it was just going to be a constant battle that they were just going to keep beating up on crypto until it only existed in the far reaches of the globe. And you blinked and you got what we have now, and this is just the beginning. So I mean, hell, blink again, here in another 6 months, I'm kind of wondering where we're going to be at.
Oh, and not to mention the chance of your bank just closing your account if you have a crypto transaction. Like I've heard of
Yeah.
many cases where people just have they transferred some funds to Coinbase or something, and then their bank fucking closed their accounts or whatever. It's like, holy shit, man, or freeze your funds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my God.
We got a major crypto bill is advancing, through the House and the Senate. Senators Gillibrand and Loomis say a full draft is coming this week with hearings and a vote planned as early as next week. We're going to, for the next, 3 years, we're going to see a lot of this. I mean, it seems like this is, kind of the the focus of the Trump administration is to get as much of this crypto legislation done as possible. I mean, we know that, love him or hate him, Trump is pro crypto. He has World Liberty Fi. He had his meme coins. Personally wasn't a big fan of him having a meme coin or Melania, but it's stablecoin legislation. A lot of the legislation they're doing is centered around DeFi and RWAs, and and it's just going to accelerate. As more and more of this legislation gets through. Let's see. The debt chart everyone is ignoring tells you everything. The United States just issued 25.4 trillion in T-bills or treasury bills in 12 months, pushing the total issuance to a record 36.6 trillion. Now 69.4 of all treasury issuance is debt that expires in months. A sovereign rotating long-term obligation into short-term IOUs because the long end became unbuyable. You don't do this by choice. You do it because the system stops giving you options. When almost the entire federal liability stack prices off the Fed's overnight rate, you're watching the government convert its balance sheet into a variable rate debt bomb. Long story short, this is not a good thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's why a lot of us got into crypto, as we understand, and, specifically Bitcoin and, some other assets, is we see what's happening with the dollar. The world and, people that are paying attention are losing trust in the US dollar. And, due to inflation, if you're not earning at least 7% a year, with your dirty fiat, you're losing money. If you have it sitting in the bank earning, 0.1% or something like that, you're losing on average, 6.9% of its buying power every year. So,
God.
in a decade, that's 70%. It's so if you're saving for retirement and you're just sticking it in a bank account, you might want to rethink that. You might want to look at investing in gold, investing in silver, investing in crypto, Bitcoin, doing DeFi, converting your US dollars into USDC, which is
Mhm.
backed by, the US dollar. But with USDC, you can easily, even on Coinbase, you can earn 4 to 7% and, keep up, at least somewhat keep up with inflation. There's some places you can earn 10% or more so that you can actually outpace inflation. So if you're not learning DeFi, I highly suggest, like DeFi Don in the chat, he's taken
Yeah.
David's DeFi University course, has been in every live call that David has during the week. Um, you really need to learn DeFi because I feel like there's a window. I don't know how long that window is going to be open, with legislation and the accredited investor stuff, and what's going to be end up being closed off to the average person. But a lot of these interest rates, or a lot of these APRs or yield that we're earning. The more people that are providing liquidity, the less yield that we're going to earn. So
Mhm.
it's there could a time could come where 10, 11, 12% is a stellar return, whereas right now, if you want to be really degen, you can earn a couple of 1,000%, for relatively safely. You can earn 100, 200%, and pretty safe. You can easily get 10, 20, 30%, 60%, double digits, which I do on a regular basis. I mean, I would say my average is probably 30, 40% APR is what I shoot for. Using full range pools, lending, things like that. And again, with USDC, I mean, there's some places you can earn 10, 20%, without doing anything crazy like looping or, anything like that. So highly suggest dipping your toe in. Start with maybe some lending, some staking, and eventually some full range pools. But check out Jake's channel. Check out David's channel. Keep watching our channel and learn about DeFi.
Yeah.
Um,
Rifleman said that there are rumors that JP Morgan could get squeezed to insolvent levels because of their decade-long naked shorts on silver. He said
mm,
his silver stack feels pretty good after more than a decade. You
yeah,
got it, silver. How are you feeling?
dude, I've been stacking like collectible silver coins, like Morgan silver dollars, silver bars, rounds, all of that since I was a kid. I have a
Yeah.
shit ton of silver. I mean, you saw my safe.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like I got a lot of silver, and I bought a bunch of it when during COVID, when silver dipped to $12 an ounce. I
Yeah.
found every bit of money that I could get my hands on and bought as much of it as I could. Because I ran a precious metals and collectible coin shop for a while, and have fully understood the price suppression that's been going on with silver for a very long time. And at some point, that's gonna give, and it's starting to give. It wasn't too long ago. Silver was $30, $34. It's only a couple years ago, and now we're up to above 60. Um, I forget what the price the correlation with gold, that if silver wasn't suppressed, I'm wanting to say it was a couple $100 an ounce is what it was the last time I looked.
Shit. Man.
Yeah, DeFi Don, absolutely. It doesn't seem like a lot, but if you can earn 1% a day in DeFi, which is not unheard of, that's 30%, 30% a month that you're making in profit. So that's what, 360% a year,
And that compounds too.
and that's compounding. So
Hmm.
every time that either if it's auto compounding or if you go in there once a week or once a day or whatever, and you compound, the arrow locks, those of us that, watch the channel, our community, we're very bullish on Arrow and the new platform coming out next year.
Yeah.
I'm in locks making an average of 30% that compounds weekly. And I've been doing that for a year now. Started out with 5,100 and I have about 15,000 now. Not
Shit.
fully from compounding. I did do another lock, and then with the flight school bonus, the free flight school bonuses, but then the compounding on top of that. I mean, I've more than doubled, just because of the compounding factor. It's not just the 30% APR, it's that it compounds weekly. So it's not like it pays out, once a year or once a month. Like every week, it adds to my bags and then it compounds off that new total. And the next week, I get a little bit more because of that added amount. And I add that amount to it. And that compounds. And it just rinse and repeat week over
Mhm.
week over week. And so, yeah, now I'm earning on 15,000 Arrow instead of 5,100 Arrow. And it's just going to keep doing that because I have them max locked. I'm bullish on Arrow long term. So I'm going to leave it in there because I'm earning roughly, from that and my full range pool, about 1,000 Arrow a month. So, not saying it's going to go there, but just for a good round number, I mean, it's already gone to $2.20, without, the new platform coming out that's
Yep.
multi-chain, and now there's a Solana bridge with Solana, so there's Solana assets on Aerodrome. There's
Mhm.
just a lot of stuff going on with Aerodrome. If it gets to $10, that that would be $10,000 a month that I would be making just off my locks and my full range pool. And that's the current amount of Arrow that I have. So
Uh-huh.
if it's a year or two from now, I might have, 30,000, making, twice what I'm making now. That'd be $20,000 a month that I'm
Mhm.
making at a $10 Arrow. That's not even the rest of my crypto. And I'm not saying Arrow's going to go there. I'm just giving an example of the potential if you have the vision to get in early and to stack your bags on these projects, because we've watched it. The flight school bonuses. The first flight school bonus I got was like 50%. I put in 5,100 Arrow and got 2,600 free Arrow. The last one I did a couple weeks ago, I did a 2,500 Arrow and I got like 385. It was like 15%.
Oh
So
yeah.
huge difference because of the amount of people that are locking. It's based off of how many, a locked Arrow there are, because there's only so much Arrow for the rewards. So the amount of people now that are getting into it has diluted the flight school bonus. So again, because I was one of the early adopters, that my first lock got a really good flight school bonus and jump started my bag. So that is why it's so important to learn about DeFi now. And yeah, no, DeFi Don, I agree. I don't think a $10 Arrow at some point is out of, that's not moon math or anything like that. I
Oh,
I think that $10 is highly possible.
when you compare that to Uniswap, that isn't doesn't nearly have the features that this next
No.
aerodrome platform has. And well, the end of last year it hit almost $20 Uniswap, and it's multi-chain, but yeah, the stuff that Arrow has, they don't have the Uniswap locks like Arrow does, and the flight school bonus stuff. I mean, it's yeah, you got to find projects that are offering these kind of products, and also the rev
Oh, the
thing,
Rev
the
engine?
revenue thing, engine, and all this stuff that they're building in. And I
Oh,
mean,
no,
it's
I mean,
just
there's
MEV
gonna be
protection.
the MEV auctions for token launches. There's gonna be institutional RWAs and pools. For
Mhm.
investing. It's going to be integrated into the Coinbase app and the Coinbase platform. It's going to
Yep.
be multi-chain. There's the Solana bridge. There is buybacks. There's going to be buybacks, and those buybacks are going to be max locked. So the new Arrow token is going to be 85% deflationary. If you don't understand what that means, it's just basically tokenomics, to where it's taking tokens out of circulation and making it more probable, not guaranteed, but more probable for price appreciation, because there isn't this constant flow of new tokens flooding the market. So
Mhm.
there's just so much going on with plus all the automations and being able to zap into pools with whatever asset you want, to where you don't have to if you're wanting to get into an arrow pool and you want to use your arrow, you don't have to sell half of it into USDC or wrapped ETH, and then try to
Mhm.
get into the pool. You can just select the pool, select what liquidity you want to use, and boom, you're in. Auto compounding, auto harvesting, just a bunch of AI. There's a bunch of AI stuff that's going to be part of it. The list goes on. I mean, it really is just going to be a whole new world when it comes to removing those barriers to entry, and by removing those barriers to entry to where the average person can use it and provide liquidity and be doing swaps. That's just more volume, more swaps going on, which generates more fees for those of us that provide liquidity. And then if you have institutions, doing that stuff as well, that's just fees on fees on fees on fees that we're earning. So
Mhm.
very exciting, very exciting. I probably have way too much arrow. My portfolio's weighted way too much into arrow, but I keep for a while I was selling off arrow into other projects like Plume and things like that to try to balance out my portfolio. But every time I turn around, it earns so much that it turns into like this massive part of my portfolio again.
Yeah, and you being able to convince David to take a different look at it too. I mean, he
Yeah.
was all on the I'm against these decentralized exchange tokens and all that, but you sat him down and showed him what they were doing, and he was like, "Oh shit, let me kind of
Yeah, well,
reassess."
he's definitely not an arrow bull, but he
No.
definitely kind of took a step back and was like, "Oh, okay," because
Mhm.
and he's right. He likes projects where they do buybacks, and there's like pretty much dividends paid out to token holders. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I 100% agree with him. The only thing that we didn't agree on is he thought that Aerodrome didn't have any of that, and I was trying to explain to him, it's like they have some of that now, and the rest of it is on its way. So we'll keep everybody up to speed on that as it progresses, and as that information is put out. Canton Foundation. In crypto, privacy is often seen as optional, but in finance, it's structural. If you're not familiar, Canton Network is here. I got it pulled up here. So if you're not paying attention, it'll pop up here in a second. Canton Network has been building for a while quietly, and it went live a couple of weeks ago. And with that came 8,460 different RWAs and 372, almost $373 billion. So basically, it dwarfs Ethereum, Aptos, Polygon, ZK Sync, pretty much everybody. And the reason being, and the reason institutions love it so much, is because it has a privacy layer. So banks don't, and big institutions don't want everybody seeing what they're doing on chain. We love it because we can see what big money's doing, and this is part of that window I was talking about. Um, you know, to another. Nope. Was that me?
Oh, there you go.
All
You're
right.
back.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we've, those of us that pay attention have been utilizing to better understand where big money is investing and building is everything's visible on chain. They don't want that. They want to. It's like poker. They want to hold their cards, close to their chest. They don't want to turn them around so you can see their whole hand and everything that they're doing. It really is a poker game. So they are hugely bullish on projects like Canton Network that allow them to have their siloed networks, but that are still interoperable with other siloed networks, like Wells Fargo and JP Morgan Chase. They can have their private silos that only their people have visibility on, yet there's still interoperability to where they can send liquidity, people can send money, they can send value, RWAs, whatever, back and forth, cheaply and quickly. So Canton is one. If you look at the price, you're probably not that excited about it. But if you're watching what's being built, if you're looking at the data, like you can look at this Canton scan, it's basically just on-chain data. Again, one of the reasons I love crypto so much is there's so much data that you can dive into to better understand your investment.
Dude.
This is the daily mint activity. They've dramatically dropped off of how much, Canton, CC, new CC that they're minting. Daily burn activity has been increasing. So, basically the token burns. You have the daily burn app rewards mint plus validator rewards mint. All of this, cumulative mint, cumulative burn activity, all of this is just bullish as far as tokenomics. So I got a nice little bag of Canton, and if anybody out there finds a liquidity pool that does well as far as earning, because I really want to stack more Canton. But there's a couple of pools out there, but last time I looked, they weren't that juicy. They didn't have enough TVL, and there wasn't a good enough yield for me to want to jump into it quite yet. So,
Yeah, it's good to know. Yeah, because some of these early projects, you want to make sure that you're not just jumping into a pool that, I mean, it doesn't have enough volume, but yeah, the TVL, because that's where you really earn the rewards is from the swapping, and there's not enough activity. I mean, you're just going to be kind of fucked.
yeah. Plume, another one that, if you look at price, it's down hard. It's last I looked, it was down, just over 2 cents. For a long time, it was around 15. But if you look, they are sitting at the same table with projects like Nest, like Circle, the people that mint USDC. They just launched their ARC network. Plume has joined the ARC public testnet, built by Circle. It's building the economic operating system for the internet as the first RWA5 platform backed by the largest RWA community. We are bringing Nest credit and institutional issuers to ARC, empowering on-chain capital markets. If you look at everything that's being built on Plume, there was some FUD going around about them only having 2 devs. That's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of potentially there's a lot of devs out there that are working on the over 230 different projects that are building or live on Plume already. The data that was showing, only 2, devs. It was, basically it was based off of commits on, was it GitHub?
Yeah.
Yeah, on GitHub. That could simply just be that there's 2 main devs that are doing quality control, and the rest of the devs have to, send their commits to those devs, before they're, actually sent out. and I'm just guessing because that's all anybody's doing with that because it's not public anywhere of how many devs they have. So, but at one point they had, it was showing 50, and since the mainnet went live, since kind of that development, finalized, and it's just kind of maintaining and things like that. It just makes me wonder. And then of course, you had the old CTO died right before mainnet went live, and a new person took over. So their operating procedures, their SOP, could have changed to where again, they have their senior devs that are QCing everything before it goes out on mainnet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm throwing, I'm being devil's advocate on here because I don't have anything official that backs up what I'm saying. I just, from an operations standpoint, I've been a COO of multiple companies. A couple of them have been tech companies, and so I understand how I work and how building of software and things like that work. And so that's, if I was running things, that's how I would do it. I wouldn't have it so just anybody, especially on something that is institutional finance, that just anybody can submit something to go live on the mainnet. I would want it to be screened probably multiple times, before it went live, because potentially somebody could put, some sort of virus or bug in there, like on
Huh?
Office Space, when they're like,
Oh,
hey, we're gonna load this up and it's
yeah.
going to take a fraction of a cent, on every
Yep.
transaction, and
Yep.
nobody will notice anything,
Nope.
and then, they wake up in the morning and there's millions of dollars in the account because they put the decimal in the wrong place. But
Uh-huh.
that's the kind of thing that potentially could happen if you don't have, those, firewalls in place, those checks and balances. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that. I mean, you're in
And there's
you're
a
in
lot
you're in
that goes,
hardware development and your brother's in software development. I mean, what's
yeah.
your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's a lot that goes into the stuff behind the scenes. And like you were saying, just because it looks like there's two developers doesn't mean that there are only two developers. And yeah, I mean, especially building out something like what Plume is doing, where you got to make sure that all the stuff that's being integrated is compliant, and not to mention all the stuff, all the jobs that they're hiring for.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're growing. So, in I was gonna say the Arc testnet. I'm gonna, I did a initial video when that testnet launched, and now there's more stuff added to the testnet that you can interact with. So I'm gonna be doing an updated video on that here soon. So check that out, and it's good to at least participate in some of these test nets just to get familiar with how to use the technology. Even if you don't really airdrop hunt like that, it's good to be familiar with how these things function and operate, and so you don't lose your funds when it does launch. So that
Mhm.
way you can do it with test funds and see, okay, how do I do this again? You're not using your real money. So it's a great sandbox environment. Kind of like when you're paper trading, learning how to trade uh, crypto or stocks, start with paper trading, kind of get your feet wet, get familiar with the interface. And that's the same with test nets. They give you a fake funds in your wallet, and you can go from there. So without having to worry about sending it to the wrong address and losing it forever.
Yeah. Well, like first VA rifleman made a comment. What is your opinion on the rumors that the big TradFi banks are meeting with the Senate Banking Committee to hinder DeFi in the new market structure bill? I I don't think. I mean, hinder. I could see where they would try to do some things to try to make it to where they're the gatekeepers, where you have to go through them to access a lot of the stuff. But honestly, I just don't see how they could. Um, just with with crypto and stuff like that. I think there's always going to be dexes, that are that you can access that aren't going to go through those traditional institutions. I think the majority of people will opt to go through the traditional finance because of the safeties, and the safeguards, like the FDIC insurance, where you're insured up to $250,000 on any money that you have in your account, things like that. People like knowing that their money is safe. But I think there's always going to be degen plays, where you can earn increased yield for taking more risk. But I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure they're in there, trying to make the legislation as advantageous to them as possible. That's just how our government works. You got
Yeah.
lobbyists and special interest groups, and that's what Elizabeth Warren was doing.
Yep.
Again, I have no evidence of it, but look at how laser focused and passionate she was, and she's a Democrat,
Two.
and yet she was doing everything that supposedly she wasn't working for the banks and stuff like that, but every single thing she did to fight DeFi and crypto and using Gary Gensler, and how many times she got caught sending him the questions, before,
Oh,
the Senate hearings, where, they were going to sit him down and they were going to grill him, because of the stuff that he was doing and whatnot. And it got leaked that she basically gave him the questions before, the hearing, and was like, "Hey, let me know if these questions are all right." And then she was trying to make it seem like that it was confrontational, and it's just
dog and pony show.
it's all kabuki. It's
Yeah.
all Japanese kabuki show. That
Yeah.
it's all, hey, hey,
Yep. Yep.
it's just it's entertainment. It's political theater is all it
Mhm.
is. She was doing the bidding of the banks because they are scared of DeFi. I mean, I have not a single dollar, in my regular bank account, except for what needs to be there to pay my bills. Anything that has to do with investing for my future, or or to beef up my retirement, is in crypto or DeFi. Because
Mhm.
why would I have it in the bank where it earns me nothing and earns the bank, 9, 10%, and they can lend however many times, 9, 10 times the same dollar. Or I can take it, put it in DeFi, and I can earn, 10, 20, 30, 40% or more.
Mhm.
Which am I going to do? I mean, it's a no brainer. And once people catch on to that, banks are in trouble. So banks are scrambling right now, trying to figure out how to structure their offerings and structure their business model to morph as quickly as possible into something to where they can remain profitable, yet still retain customers, because it's a house of cards. I mean, there's already banks that have gone insolvent. Somebody was just talking about in the chat, JP Morgan Chase, about potentially going insolvent. A bunch of banks have over leveraged themselves with commercial real estate, and with interest rates being up as high as they are, a lot of them, they have to refinance that debt, and at the current rates, basically it would make them insolvent. They can't continue to keep the lights on with the way that the current rates are. That's why I'm leaning towards a 50 point basis cut, and I think it's why Trump is pushing so hard for lower rates, because he's a real estate guy and a commercial real estate guy. He understands that market, and he understands that freight train that's barreling down the tracks, that if it's not addressed, it's going to be a huge hit to the US economy and to banks. So there's a lot of stuff going on, a perfect storm brewing, and people are scrambling to try to fix it. And I think that's going to, in a lever that they're trying to pull, I think, is this tokenization, is RWAs, is tokenizing real estate to where it makes it more liquid, to where they can borrow against it easier. They can, leverage it. They can do a lot of different things to lessen, say that they, had 2% interest rates on that commercial real estate, and now they have to refinance at 6 or 7. If they can earn 4 or 5% off a tokenized RWA of that, or if they can put it into a fund because it's tokenized to where people can invest in it, and that releases that burden to where they get some of that liquidity back and they're earning yield. So it's a way to mitigate that exposure. So that's why I think there's this huge push in Washington where almost every bill they're working on has to do with stable coins or RWAs or DeFi and setting up those guardrails, because it's the only thing that's potentially going to save, the US markets and the US banks, in my opinion. And I'm not an expert on, banks and the economy and stuff like that. This is just going off of, my understanding of it and talking to people, day in and day out, much smarter than me.
Yeah, and I was going to say about the DeFi side of it, for myself, having some full range pools over the past 6 to 8 months has really mitigated my losses, as opposed to just holding the token itself. And seeing the power of, and also earning fees off of that too, to kind of DCA. A lot of people are just holding assets and seeing the markets drop, but you can mitigate that a lot. Oh yeah, that Pendleton. You can mitigate that a lot with these DeFi pools if you do it right, and just keep DCAing. So you don't have to really worry about if the market's going down or whatever. If you're holding it long enough, it'll go back up, and then you'll be sitting pretty. But it's really been a cornerstone in my investing strategy now is DeFi. And once RWAs start getting kicked off, I'm really interested in looking at the fractionalized properties and shit like that, which is going to be pretty cool. And that's where the NFTs can be a use case, and not just a picture of a frog or a monkey
or a rock or a monkey. No,
rock.
a lot of people, NFTs last cycle, I mean, they kind of got a stigma because, I mean, you had cartoon monkeys selling for millions of dollars, and everybody, heard NFTs and they thought that's all NFTs were. And I was one of them because I wasn't in DeFi yet. I didn't realize that, pretty much any smart contract in DeFi, for the most part, is an NFT. When you do an arrow lock, it's an NFT. It's what makes it to where you can sell it, on markets. Another thing the new Aerodrome platform is going to have is it's going to have an NFT market to where you can, sell for a discount. You can sell your arrow locks or buy somebody else's arrow locks. You can, buy other NFTs or sell other NFTs. But there's gonna be a marketplace. But I never got into the those types of NFTs. But I almost think it was necessary to advance the use case, though, to get people to understand the how an NFT works. But yeah, I'm really excited to see kind of how that aspect of crypto, and I'm kind of biased because I'm so engrossed in DeFi and RWAs, but I really think that for the foreseeable future, just with the amount of liquidity that's already in those two markets and that's waiting on the sidelines to flood in, I honestly think that DeFi and RWAs is going to be the market share. Like if you looked at a pie chart, like I'll go over here to rwa.xyz. If you look at one of these pie charts and it has like a little, slice of the pie, for all the different use cases, AI and gaming and, metaverse and, all those different things. I honestly think that, like half of it or more is going to be DeFi and RWAs as far as, TVL for
Mm-hmm.
the foreseeable, if not the forever future, just because of the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that are in this market. And then you have to think about what's already in this market. And then once things that aren't liquid become tokenized. So real estate, private credit, just there's, fine art. There's a bunch of stuff that isn't liquid. So it isn't in these markets. And then, you got stocks that, used to be, they could only be traded by stockbrokers and you had to. There we go.
Oh,
You know,
there you go.
you had to jump through all those hoops, trying to, trade stocks. You can go on a bunch of different platforms like on Plume and a bunch of other places now, and you can buy tokenized Microsoft stock, Tesla stock, 24/7, 365 with a couple of clicks of a button. This is going to change everything. And the amount of liquidity that is going to flood into this market is beyond, like beyond comprehension. And the amount of money that's going to move daily is going to just blow what is currently going on out of the water. And to have your liquidity in there to assist in moving that value and earning yield, the quicker you can get in, the bigger you're going to be able to build your portfolio to where, as those yields start shrinking, then it's still going to be enough to impact your life. Instead of having a couple of $1,000 where, maybe you're making 20, $30 a month or something like that. You'll have a couple of $100,000 where you're making, a couple of $1,000 a month. And, that actually helps, augment your income, helps you pay the bills and combat this ridiculous inflation we're dealing with and the out of control taxation that we're dealing with. You really need to start doing something other than just going out and getting a second job. I mean, you need to figure out how to make your money work for you, because sitting in a bank account or sitting in a mattress isn't doing it. At least buy some physical silver or gold. I mean, we've seen that goes up. If you don't trust crypto, fine. But do not just let your money sit in the bank or sit in cash. You're losing value. I mean, it's what if we'll just round it to 10%, because it's around 7-8%. For basically, by that logic, every 10 months, you're working for 1 month for free. And then on top of that, with taxes, about 4 or 5 of those months is what you're working to pay taxes. So half of the year, your wages from half of the year through inflation and taxes, you might as well light it on fire. So if you're making $100,000 a year, you're only taking home $50,000.
Yep.
You might think that you're
Especially in
borrowing.
California.
Yeah.
Especially in California.
So, if you're making $100,000 in California and you're getting taxed, to, your balls off plus inflation, you're trying to live off $50,000. You really need to pay attention because, nobody's coming to save you. I mean, obviously the government can't, I mean, all they can do is print more money, and they've done that way too much. And that's why we got inflation. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Stan asked if stocks are on Arrow's roadmap. I don't believe so. I didn't see anything in the new.
Actually, I think that they might be. I
Okay.
seem to remember that, because they were going to have those institutional offerings that
Oh,
there were supposed to be like some funds that could have stocks in them.
ooh,
So
okay.
I Aerodrome is going to be uh it's going to be an interesting platform, come next year.
Hell yeah.
I would
Yeah.
definitely get some exposure to it. I mean, if there was anything other than Bitcoin and Ethereum that I would advise anybody to buy right now, it would be Arrow.
Nice. Yeah, and DeFi Dawn, managing deltas and concentrated liquidity pools. I was watching some DeFi stuff on delta hedging, and yeah, it's a great strategy if you. I know David's working on one right now, delta hedge strategy, kind of having a short open when you're against your liquidity pools, but you got to really hone that in and know what you're doing. But yeah, and I was gonna say, if you got to find ways to mitigate your losses by hedging. If you can find different strategies and implement them, they can definitely be a great tool to your investment strategy. But learn as much as you can first, and and that's why you know these shows on Wednesday are so great. And if you can do DeFi University and join those mentorship calls, because the information that they share is incredible.
Well, shit, man. Freaking, as usual, I was yammering on. We've already gone over an hour.
Time flies, man, when you got the alpha.
And yeah, and I barely put a dent in what I was wanting to go over. Um, but
Oh, and see Wild, yeah, the 401k stuff, trying to withdraw. I've done that in the past from previous jobs, and I mean they take 40% up to or 60%, something like that. It's crazy.
yeah, they get
So
penalties and fees and freaking all that shit. So yeah,
yeah,
no, like I said, I got my military retirement, and I got some other investments, but for the most part, my portfolio in crypto is I'm building out to separate myself from the scam that is traditional investing, because they it's rigged. It's rigged so that everybody gets their cut. In traditional finance, you got the brokers, you got the banks, you got the government. Everybody's like, yeah, yeah, you can we'll allow you to invest your money there, but whenever you cash it out, government wants their piece. Your broker wants their piece. This little piece over here is going to go away, and then we'll let you keep that little piece. It's such a sham. And so yeah, that's why I'm a huge fan of DeFi. Closing thoughts: even if you don't invest in DeFi, even if you don't put your liquidity to work, start learning DeFi. You know,
hmm
watch the channel here, watch Jake's channel, go over, to David's DeFi University. Start learning from him. We all have very different styles. David, very much, he makes very, very good money. And he actually lives off of the yield that he earns. That's what he does full time. Jake, he has his businesses where he makes most of his money, and he invests in DeFi to grow his portfolio. He doesn't necessarily live off of it. He uses it to grow his portfolio. And then you have me, where I like keeping things simple, stupid. It's like, very smart to, hedge and, with deltas and, try to get delta neutral and things like that. But I don't want it to be that complicated for me. I don't want to jump through a
yeah,
bunch of hoops to, you know, mitigate my losses. I want to be able to jump on a plane, fly somewhere, 12, 14 hours, and not worry if I don't have an internet connection. If I want to go, fishing or kayaking up here, I don't want to have to get out of all my positions, worried if the market takes a churn. I want to just put it into staking put it into lending, put it into a full range pool and just let it, worry free, make me money. Am I going to make less money? Absolutely. But it's worry free money. So that's my style. If you listen to me, I don't use big words. I don't use super complicated strategies. I'm looking to relax. I'm retired. I'm out in the woods enjoying life. I don't want to, other than doing the show and stuff, I don't just want to sit behind monitors all day staring at screens. Once my portfolio takes off, I mean, that's for the most part, the only time I'm going to be behind these screens is when I'm doing a show. So that's my closing thoughts. What's yours, Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah. Just follow these guys, especially on the Wednesday calls or Wednesday shows, because I find so much alpha in that. Yeah. And try and use your money outside of bills. Take it from your bank account, put it into DeFi, start earning, several double-digit percentage on your APY, and DeFi U is free. They have 1 hour beginners call starting Monday. So, like I said, the links are in the description below, and it's these resources are gonna benefit you. They're invaluable, especially if they're free. And if you do find value, it's even better. And like I was saying, these Wednesday shows, I've learned so much that I'm teaching family members who do have the funds to really kind of live off of, and I'm showing them, okay, I'm gonna have to sit down and walk them through it, but I'm teaching them and they're getting intrigued. So, it kind of plant that seed and show them if you have a portfolio that you're building, show them, be transparent with them. Say, hey, because my aunt and uncle were like, oh, you can just take your crypto out and transfer it to your bank account. I was like, yeah, I showed them how you can do it and showed them my portfolio and what I'm doing with the DeFi
why
stuff.
Would you
and
want
to? Yeah, well, yeah. So it's, and that's what makes them feel good. It's like, okay, it's not just fake money that you can't touch. It's not just like this magical internet money that is like, oh, in theory you could take it out, but no, it's there, it's building. And just be transparent with your family. If they don't believe you, show them, and make them feel good. If you have to teach them how to set up a wallet, walk them through every step, be a good resource for them. And that'll be great to help onboard more retail and more people and give them the power of financial freedom that they don't have with the banks. So yeah, learn as much as you can, and also reach out to us if you ever have any questions. We're in the Discord. We love chatting with you guys and connecting. So we appreciate all the love and support.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I think I'm going to polish off the rest of this bottle and enjoy my evening. And so tomorrow, I'll be restreaming live that Maro Nafal show that I'll be on. Tomorrow is the Jake and David DeFi Masterclass, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Thursday, I might just do a solo show. I don't have an interview. And then Friday will be, of course, me and Jeff. So definitely make sure you join us. Use the free tools that we offer. Like he was just saying, like Jeff was just saying, you got the Discord. There's a free version of Metrics Finance to track your portfolio, your DeFi portfolio, and also to simulate positions. There is free parts of the DeFi University. There is so much free stuff here. I mean, yes, you can, get paid versions of it to, get access to a lot more, but to get started, it costs you nothing. You can get your foot in the door with DeFi all for free as far as your education. If you get, once you get in and you start, learning enough and you start making money and you want to invest, in advancing your knowledge and advancing your portfolio, then you start looking at the paid versions of things. Maybe get the $50 a month boosted metrics finance. Use the links that we offer, because it doesn't cost you anymore, but it helps the channel. We make a little bit of money if you use our link. Full transparency. And then David's full DeFi course is in the daily live calls is $97 a month. If you're making a couple $1,000s a month off the information and the tools, $150 a month is nothing. But again, use the free stuff until you've exhausted the free stuff and you're making enough to make the investment to where it's paying for itself at least. Do not just jump in and start paying for things. We want you to be successful in your investing. Put as much money as you can into your investments as long as you can. Like I said, there's plenty to use. There's plenty to learn that's free. Go with that first. If you have any questions, ask me in the Discord. Ask any of our people in our community. We have a great group of people in there. They're happy to help. So with that, have a great evening. And until next time, Veteran Crypto out.